Stop what you're doing right now. What you discover in the next few minutes can completely change the way you see your life. Do not close this video. Have you noticed that after certain experiences, there is no longer a return to normal? What if I told you that more than 80% of people who go through a spiritual awakening report the same feeling, as if something has been activated from within, and nothing else fit like before? It's not confusion. It's not tiredness. And it's definitely not crazy. It is the irreversible point, the silent instant when your consciousness crosses an invisible line and begins to see the world behind the mask. Maybe you tried to ignore it, get distracted, convince yourself that it's just a phase, but deep down you know, something has already changed. And now the question is, will you resist? Or will it cross? Did you know that there is a point of no return in spiritual awakening, an exact moment where everything changes and you just can't go back to who you were, no matter how hard you try? Most people who talk about spirituality don't tell you this because it sounds scary, but it's the most important truth you need to hear. While everyone romanticizes the awakening of consciousness as if it was something light and magical, the reality is that when you cross that invisible line, you lose things forever and gain others that will completely transform your existence. It's not about becoming a better or worse person, it's about becoming hopelessly different. What I'm going to reveal now goes against everything you have been taught about spiritual growth. You've been told it's a smooth, progressive journey that you can pause whenever you want and come back when you feel comfortable. Lie. True spiritual awakening is an inner earthquake that doesn't ask permission to happen, and when it happens, there's no pause, there's no turning back, there's no negotiation. It's like finding out that you've lived your whole life inside a dream and suddenly waking up. You may even try to close your eyes and go back to sleep, but your body already knows it's awake. Real spiritual transformation is not a choice you make. It is an event that happens to you, through you, and that marks you permanently. Maybe you're feeling the signs right now and don't even realize it. Increasingly frequent synchronicities, people moving away for no apparent reason. That strange feeling of being between two worlds. An insomnia that is not physical fatigue, but the soul that can no longer sleep. If you are experiencing this, pay attention. You may be seconds, minutes, or days away from crossing the irreversible point of consciousness awakening. And when you cross it, everything, absolutely everything, will change. Your perception of reality, your relationships, your purpose, your identity. Nothing will remain as it was. But here's the paradox that few understand. This irreversible point isn't a curse, even if it sometimes feels like it. It is actually the greatest gift your soul could ever receive, disguised as a crisis. It's the moment where you finally stop pretending, stop sleeping, stop accepting crumbs when you could have the whole feast. Spiritual enlightenment doesn't come to comfort you. It comes to wake you up, even if it hurts, even if it destroys everything you knew. And after the destruction, then comes the reconstruction of something genuinely yours, something that does not depend on external approval, something that pulsates with the truth of your essence. If you feel that this message was made for you, if something inside your chest vibrated differently while you were reading, comment below the number 111. This is the code of those who recognize the call of spiritual awakening. Let's create an energetic current between souls who are going through this transformation right now. There is a moment in every soul's journey when something changes forever and there is no turning back. We are not talking about a simple phase or a passing interest in spirituality. It is something much deeper and irreversible. Research shows that only 3% of people who go through a true spiritual awakening are able to return to the life they had before. And do you know why? Because after you see beyond the veil, after your consciousness expands, It's like trying to unsee something that has changed your entire perception of reality. The awakening of consciousness does not ask permission to arrive, it just happens. And when it happens, you cross an invisible line that separates who you were from who you really are. The most intriguing thing about all of this is that most people don't realize when they are about to cross this irreversible point. They go on living, feeling that growing discomfort, that strange feeling that something no longer fits, but they can't name what it is. It's as if the soul knows that it's about to wake up from a deep sleep, but the mind still resists, still tries to cling to the familiar, to the comfortable. This resistance, my friend, is exactly what makes the process so intense and often so painful. Spiritual transformation does not respect our will to remain the same. It drags us into a new version of ourselves, whether we like it or not. Have you ever stopped to think about why so many people around you seem to be sleeping, living on automatic, repeating patterns without questioning anything? It's because they haven't crossed that line yet. And look, it's not judgment. It's just a fact. There is a before and after in this spiritual journey. Before you can pretend, you can wear social masks, you can convince yourself that everything is fine even when it is not. After spiritual awakening, these masks begin to suffocate, and you simply cannot wear them anymore without feeling a deep anguish. It is as if your soul rejects any form of falsehood or superficiality. So if you feel like something is changing inside of you, if things that once made sense now feel empty, pay attention. You may be right at that delicate point, at that moment where everything may still seem confusing, but something great is about to happen. Spiritual enlightenment does not come with fireworks or an instruction manual. It comes silently, sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes during a crisis, but always at the exact moment when your soul is ready to receive it. And when it arrives, everything changes, absolutely everything. Before you cross the irreversible point of spiritual awakening, your life begins to show clear signs that something extraordinary is coming. Synchronicities, those coincidences that seem like messages from the universe, begin to appear with a frequency that borders on the impossible. You think of someone and they call you minutes later. You need an answer and open a book exactly on the page that talks about it. Repeated numbers chase you wherever you look. 1111, 2222, 333. It's not paranoia, my friend. It's the universe poking you, trying to show you that there is a greater order behind the apparent chaos. These synchronicities are like breadcrumbs on the path to awakening consciousness, guiding you to something greater. The feeling of being between two worlds becomes almost unbearable at this stage. You are still physically here, fulfilling your obligations, going to work, paying bills, but mentally and spiritually, you are already somewhere else. It's like watching a movie in which you were the protagonist, but now you've become just an observer. Superficial conversations about futility start to drain your energy in a way that has never happened before. You smile, you wave, you participate, but inside there is a growing emptiness, a voice that whispers, "This is not for you anymore." This duality between the external and internal worlds is one of the clearest signs that spiritual transformation is knocking on your door. And here comes something that scares a lot of people. People and situations start to leave your life without logical explanation. That friend of years just walks away. That relationship that seemed solid falls apart out of nowhere. That job that you thought was stable suddenly no longer makes sense. It sounds cruel, it seems unfair, but it is actually a necessary energetic cleansing. The universe is removing everything that no longer resonates with the frequency you are achieving. It's painful, yes, but think about it this way. You can't carry old baggage for a new journey. Spiritual awakening requires space, and that space is created when what no longer serves is gently, or not so gently, removed from your path. Spiritual insomnia arrives to complete the package of signs. You wake up at 3 a.m. with your mind buzzing with deep thoughts, existential questions, insights into life and the universe. It's not your average anxiety insomnia. It's different. It is as if your soul is so awake, so active, that the body simply cannot sleep as it used to. And dreams become cinematic, prophetic, loaded with symbolism that you have never experienced before. You dream of places you've never visited, but that seem strangely familiar. Dreams of people giving you important messages. Dreams of situations that days later happen in real life. These dreams are portals, windows to the subtler dimensions of existence, preparing you for what is to come. And then there is that moment that can't be described with ordinary words, but I'll try. It is an internal, instantaneous click, as if someone turned on a light in a room that has been dark all its life. It's not gradual, it's not subtle. It's such a clear watershed that you can remember exactly where you were, what you were doing, maybe even the smell of the air at that moment. It can happen during a deep meditation, in the middle of an intense emotional crisis, or even in a completely banal moment like eating breakfast. The awakening of consciousness does not necessarily choose dramatic scenarios. It chooses the moment when your soul is finally ready to receive the truth. And when that happens, everything changes in the blink of an eye. At this exact moment, you see through the matrix, to use an analogy that everyone understands. The social structures, the beliefs that have been imposed on you, the conditionings that you carried as absolute truths, all of this suddenly becomes transparent, as if you could see the threads that move the theater of life. You realize that you spent years, maybe decades, living a narrative that wasn't even yours, following a script written by others. It's scary and liberating at the same time. It's as if you take off sunglasses you've been wearing since you were a child and suddenly see the real colors of the world. Spiritual enlightenment is not about gaining new knowledge. It is about removing the layers of illusion that have prevented you from seeing what has always been there. The recognition of the true nature of the soul happens in this mystical instant, and it is impossible to pretend that it has not happened. You perceive yourself not as a body with a soul, but as a soul having a temporary experience in a body. This inversion of perspective is devastating to everything you believed about identity, purpose, and existence. Suddenly, those questions that tormented you, who am I? Why am I here? What is the meaning of all this? Gain answers that do not come from the logical mind, but from a deep knowledge that springs from your core. It is not a new belief that you have adopted. It's an old memory that has finally come back to the surface. Spiritual awakening is actually a reawakening for who you have always been before you forgot. And you know what's most curious? After this click happens, you try to explain it to someone close to you and realize that the words are completely inappropriate. You talk about universal connection, about unity, about expanded consciousness, and the person looks at you with that expression of, "Are you okay?" It's not her fault. It's simply impossible to describe the sun to someone who has never seen light. This moment marks not only an inner spiritual transformation, but also the beginning of a particular loneliness. A loneliness of those who have seen something that most have not yet seen. But paradoxically, it's also the beginning of a deeper connection with everything that exists, even if you feel temporarily isolated from those who are still asleep. Now comes the part that no one tells you when they talk about spiritual awakening: the losses. And the first and perhaps most disturbing is the ability to live on autopilot. You know that comfortable state where you just flow through life without questioning too much, where waking up, working, eating, sleeping, repeating seemed acceptable. It's over. Once you cross the irreversible point, every action, every word, every thought passes through a filter of consciousness that simply didn't exist before. You can no longer watch TV for hours without noticing the mental programming. He can no longer eat anything without feeling the energy of the food. He can no longer take a job just for the salary if it does not feed his soul. It's exhausting at first, because mindfulness requires constant presence, and constant presence gets you tired when you're not used to it. Superficial relationships just don't work anymore, and that's a painful loss for a lot of people. Those friendships based on gossip, complaining, or futility start to suck your energy like never before. You try to engage in that conversation about celebrities or who did what, but you feel an internal urgency screaming, "Get out of here, this is not your place anymore." It's not that you think you're better than anyone else. Quite the contrary, the awakening of consciousness is usually accompanied by deep humility. But it is that you simply cannot feign genuine interest in subjects that do not touch the essence of things. And here comes the dilemma. Do you move away and be alone, or do you stay and feel yourself dying inside little by little? Most choose to leave, even though they know it will hurt. Attachment to old identities and social masks melts like snow in the sun after spiritual transformation. That you, who presented himself to the world, the successful professional, the exemplary son, the always positive person, the funny guy in the class, these personas built over the years begin to look like fantasies that no longer fit. It's like trying to put on kids' clothes when you're already an adult. It just doesn't fit, no matter how hard you push. You realize that you have spent years cultivating an image that was not even really yours. And now that spiritual enlightenment has shown you who you really are, keeping on those masks causes almost physical pain. But here's the problem. The people around you liked those masks. They expected that character, and when you stop representing him, they feel betrayed or confused. And perhaps the most subtle but most significant loss is the innocence of unconsciousness. There is a purity, a lightness in not knowing, in not questioning, in simply accepting the world as it presents itself. After spiritual awakening, you lose that innocence forever. You see the pains of the world more clearly, you feel the collective suffering more intensely, you perceive the illusions and manipulations that previously went unnoticed. It's like eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge. There's no going back to the garden of ignorance after that. Some days you will miss that time when you didn't know so much, when life seemed simpler. But deep down, you know that this loss was necessary, that this innocence was actually a prison disguised as comfort. But not everything is losses on this journey. Quite the opposite. What you gain after crossing the irreversible point of spiritual awakening is so profound that losses seem like small sacrifices needed. The first thing is the vision beyond the veil of illusion, and that changes absolutely everything. You begin to notice invisible patterns in people's lives, to understand why things happen the way they do, to see connections that once seemed impossible. It's as if you have access to a radio frequency that most can't tune into. You see someone suffering and you instantly understand that it is not punishment, it is learning. He sees someone conquering and knows that it is a consequence of seeds planted a long time ago. The awakening of consciousness gives you a bird's-eye perspective of existence, while most still see only the small picture in front of them. The deep connection with the universe becomes your new reality, and it's not poetic metaphor, it's lived experience. You feel that you are part of a gigantic web where everything is interconnected, where your every thought affects the whole, where every action generates waves that you may never see, but that exist. It is like discovering that you are not alone in a dark room, but rather surrounded by millions of beings, energies, frequencies, all dancing the same cosmic dance. You can be physically alone, but energetically connected with all that exists. This connection brings a peace that does not depend on external circumstances. It is a peace that comes from within, from knowing that you belong to something much bigger than your little personal drama. Spiritual transformation takes you out of the center of the universe and simultaneously shows you that you are the entire universe. The activated soul purpose is perhaps the most revolutionary gain of this whole journey. After spiritual awakening, you simply know why you are here, not with your head, but with your heart. It may not come in a clear phrase like, "Your purpose is X," but it comes as an inner direction, a compass that always points to true north. You stop trying to please other people's expectations and start following an inner calling that doesn't negotiate, doesn't bargain. It can be creating art that uplifts people. It can be healing through presence. It can be simply living authentically and inspiring others by example. Purpose doesn't have to be grand in the eyes of the world. It needs to be true in the eyes of your soul. And when you're aligned with it, things start to flow in an almost magical way. The right doors open, the right people show up. Amplified energetic sensitivity is another permanent gift, although at first it may seem more like a curse. You start to feel the energies of environments, people, situations, as if you have developed a sixth sense. He enters a room and already knows if the atmosphere is heavy or light. He talks to someone and notices when the words do not match the energy that the person emanates. He visits a place and immediately feels whether it resonates or repels. This protects you from toxic situations and people, but it also requires you to learn to shield yourself energetically, not to absorb everything you feel. Over time, you learn to use this sensitivity as a tool for navigating through life, avoiding paths that you would have previously taken without thinking twice. Spiritual enlightenment does not give you superpowers. It only removes the blockages that have prevented you from accessing abilities that have always been dormant within you. Once you cross the irreversible point, the journey is far from over. In fact, it has only really begun. The first phase is chaos, and the name couldn't be more appropriate. That's when everything you believe to be true starts to crumble like a house of cards. Religions that you followed blindly now seem full of holes. Concepts of right and wrong that seemed absolute turn out to be relative. Authorities you respected are as lost as anyone. This period is disorienting because you lose your ground, you lose your references, you lose the moral and philosophical compass that guided your life. It is common to feel anger at this stage, anger at having been deceived for so long, anger at the system, anger even at oneself for not having questioned before. The awakening of consciousness at this stage is brutal, without filters, without kindness. It is a necessary deconstruction, but painful, like ripping off blindfolds that were stuck to the skin. The second phase, the void, is where many people get stuck and suffer intensely without understanding what is happening. After everything has fallen apart, you find yourself in an empty space where the old has already died, but the new has not yet been born. It is the famous dark night of the soul that mystics have been talking about for centuries. You are no longer who you were, but you still don't know who you are becoming. He no longer believes in the old stories, but he still hasn't found new narratives that make sense. It is an existential limbo where many experience deep depression, a sense of meaninglessness, the desire to give up everything. Here lies the danger. Some people try to go back, to cling to what they knew, but it's impossible. You don't fit in that old life anymore. Spiritual transformation requires you to step through that void, to trust the process even when everything seems hopeless. It is in the void that true surrender happens. And then, almost miraculously, comes the third phase, the Renaissance. This is when a new spiritual identity begins to emerge from the ashes of what you have been. You don't go back to who you were. You become someone completely new, more authentic, more aligned with your essence. The beliefs that arise now are not imposed from the outside, but are born from within, from your own experience and connection to the divine. You build a personal, unique philosophy of life that doesn't need anyone's approval because it comes from the truth you've discovered for yourself. This phase is marked by intense creativity, deep insights, and a renewed sense of purpose. Spiritual awakening completes its cycle here when you finally understand that you have not lost anything of real value. You have just gotten rid of all that was false to make room for what is true. The interesting thing is that these three phases are not linear and definitive. You can go through them multiple times at deeper and deeper levels, like an upward spiral. Each layer of illusion that falls takes you back to chaos, then to emptiness, then to rebirth, but always on a higher level than the previous one. It's like climbing a mountain in circles. You pass through the same cardinal points, but each turn takes you higher. Some people go through these phases in months, others take years, and there is no right or wrong in this. Spiritual enlightenment is not a race with a finish line. It is a never-ending journey where each discovery reveals new layers to be explored. What matters is not speed, but the willingness to keep walking even when the path disappears beneath your feet. Here is a truth that needs to be stated with absolute clarity. You cannot go back after spiritual awakening, and any attempt to do so will only multiply your suffering. It's like trying to unsee something that has fundamentally changed your perception of reality. It just doesn't work. Imagine that you have spent your whole life thinking that a wall was solid, and suddenly you see that it is just a painted curtain. You can even pretend that you still believe in the wall. You can even try to convince yourself of it. But every time you look at it, you will see the curtain. The awakening of consciousness is not reversible because it is not a belief that you have adopted. It is an experience that has transformed the way you process existence. You can resist, you can fight with it, but the only thing you will achieve is to torture yourself. Many people try to go back to what they were before because the new scares them, because the transformation hurts, because the loneliness of being awake in a sleeping world seems unbearable. They go back to superficial relationships, forcing interest that they no longer feel. They go back to jobs that drain the soul, pretending that everything is fine. They go back to old routines, trying to recreate that feeling of comfortable normality. And do you know what happens? An even greater suffering than that of the crossing, because now you are not just living unconsciously, you are consciously betraying your own soul, knowing that you are betraying. It's like going back to a prison after breathing free air. Every second inside is torture multiplied because you know the difference. The irreversible point is not a curse. Going back after crossing it is what it is. Resistance to spiritual awakening creates devastating internal conflict. A part of you wants to expand, evolve, follow the call of the soul. The other part wants security, predictability, social approval. These two forces, pulling in opposite directions, tear you from the inside. You start to develop unexplained physical symptoms, chronic anxiety, deep depression, because your body is screaming, "Stop fighting who you really are." It's a brutal waste of energy to try to hold on to a wave that has already caught you. Much better to learn how to surf it. Spiritual enlightenment is not asking for your permission. It has already happened. The only real choice you have is to accept with grace or resist with suffering. And here's the beautiful paradox of this whole story. When you finally stop resisting, when you accept that there's no turning back, when you surrender completely to the process, the suffering decreases dramatically. It's not that everything is easy all of a sudden, but you stop carrying the extra weight of the resistance. It's like swimming with the current rather than against it. You're still moving, sometimes intensely, but you're no longer exhausting yourself in an impossible battle. Spiritual transformation flows naturally when you remove the obstacles that you yourself have created. The universe is not trying to destroy you with this awakening. It is trying to set you free. But freedom scares, especially when you've spent your whole life chained and calling the chains of safety. So take a deep breath and listen to it with your heart. You were chosen for this. Not by chance, not by luck, not by bad luck. You were specifically chosen by life itself to go through this spiritual awakening. While millions live on automatic without ever questioning anything, you have been touched by something greater, something that you saw potential in your soul to carry this expanded consciousness. Your awakening is not a cosmic accident. It is a call that only prepared souls receive. Yes, it's hard. Yes, sometimes it feels like a curse. But think with me. How many people do you know who are really alive, really aware, really feeling the depth of existence? Few, very few. And you are now part of that select group, not because you are better than anyone else, but because your soul was ready to wake up. The awakening of consciousness that you are experiencing, as chaotic as it may seem right now, is the greatest gift you could ever receive. It is the difference between existing and living, between surviving and thriving, between sleeping and being truly awake. Every pain you felt in this process, every loss you went through, every moment of loneliness, all of this was necessary to burn away what was false and reveal what is true in you. You're not breaking, my friend. You're breaking the shackles that bound you. You're not losing your sanity. You are gaining clarity in an insane world. Each difficult phase you went through was a step taking you closer to who you really are, stripped of all masks and conditioning. And now that you know that there is no turning back, that you have crossed the irreversible point of spiritual transformation, the question is no longer, how do I get back to who I was? The question is, who do I want to become from here? Because the power is in your hands now. You see through the illusions, you feel the energies, you know your true nature. It gives you an advantage that few have in this life. You can use this awakening to become someone extraordinary, someone who lives aligned with your soul purpose, someone who inspires others just by existing authentically. Or you can resist, complain, play the victim of the changes that spiritual enlightenment has brought. The choice, as always, is yours. So accept it. Accept that you have changed, that the world has changed in your eyes, that there is no going back. Accept it with gratitude, with reverence, with the understanding that this is sacred. You're not everyone, and you shouldn't want to be. You are someone who has seen beyond the veil, who has touched something divine, who knows truths that most will never know. Carry this with dignity, with responsibility, with love. Spiritual awakening didn't come to destroy you. It came to rebuild you stronger, more authentic, more aligned with who you were always meant to be. And now, aware of this truth, you will never walk in the dark again. The light that has been lit within you is eternal, and no one, absolutely no one, can extinguish it. So after everything you've seen here, the question that remains is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Are you going to pretend that you haven't read it, that you haven't felt that shiver of recognition, that those words haven't touched something deep inside you? Or will you have the courage to look at your own journey and admit that yes, you are going through a spiritual awakening and there is no turning back, because knowledge without application is just entertainment. And your soul didn't wake up to entertain you, it woke up to transform you. So I ask you, are you ready to embrace this transformation, or will you spend energy trying to resist the inevitable? Think with me. How many people do you know who are really alive, who really question, who really feel the depth of existence? And now you have in your hands the opportunity to join this rare group, to live authentically, to follow your soul purpose instead of following the instruction manual that society has handed you. But this requires decision. It requires you to stop waiting for the perfect moment, external confirmation, the assurance that everything will be fine. The awakening of consciousness offers no guarantees. It offers truth. And the truth, no matter how hard it is, always liberates more than comfortable illusions imprison you. Are you going to keep faking it in the relationships that no longer feed you? Are you going to stay in the job that sucks your life energy just because it pays the bills? Will you continue to wear social masks that suffocate your essence just so you don't bother anyone? Or will you finally honor what your soul has been screaming for so long? Because let me tell you a truth. The time you spend resisting your own spiritual awakening is time stolen from the extraordinary life that awaits you on the other side. Every day you spend living in a lie is one less day living in your truth. Is it worth this waste? So here's my final invitation to you. Apply this knowledge. Start today, right now, to observe the signs of your own awakening. Write down the synchronicities. Pay attention to the people who are leaving your life. Listen to that inner voice that you have been ignoring. And above all, it stops fighting the process. Spiritual transformation is not your enemy. It is your greatest ally. If you have come this far, if these words have resonated with you, it is because your soul is ready for the next level. Don't waste this opportunity trying to get back to your previous level just because it feels safer. And look, this journey that you are starting or are already in the middle, it does not end here. There is much more for you to learn, much more for you to discover about spiritual awakening, enlightenment, expanded consciousness. So subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss the next content that will guide you on this journey. Because you don't have to do it alone, okay? There is a whole community of awakened souls here, walking together, sharing experiences, supporting each other. And now you're part of it. Welcome to the journey that has no return. The journey back home to your true essence. See you in the next video, and until then, honor your awakening. You were chosen for this.